U.S. officials say they're cutting down now on the number of people receiving some classified briefings.
This, of course, comes as Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin says the probe into classified Pentagon documents leaked online is making progress.
I will tell you that we take this very seriously, and we will continue to investigate and turn over every rock until we find the source of this and the extent of it.
CBS News intelligence and national security reporter Olivia Gazis joins us now from our D.C. bureau. Olivia, great to see you. Bring us up to speed. What kind of progress is being made in the multiple investigations that this leak has now triggered?
Great to be with you, Errol and Lana. So yes, our reporting team has confirmed here that the FBI is leading the criminal investigation into the source of the leak itself. And right now, they appear to be treating this like a theft of documents, not a hack or a cyber attack by a foreign actor. In tandem, as you mentioned, the Pentagon is investigating the circumstances of the leak. And what would usually happen is that other intelligence agencies that had their material appear in these documents, so we know of the CIA, NSA, and some others, will also contribute to that review. All of them have to first determine what is out there. Then they have to determine whether it's authentic. And then finally, they have to understand whether and how it may have compromised any sources or methods that they had. That will be a longer process. In terms of the search for the source itself, what experts have told us is that narrowing down this potential list of suspects is likely to go pretty quickly.
So tell us more about that, Olivia, because these documents are numbered. The printers for classified documents have unique IDs. Lots of straightforward clues, it seems, for investigators if these documents were stolen rather than hacked. When you say that it's going fairly soon, is it a reasonable expectation that they will announce who it is and under what time frame?
Well, it seems like we could arrive at something quickly. In fact, the question assumes that investigators haven't already found this person and aren't just watching him or her for a time, or that they haven't already been arrested somewhere just without much fanfare. That is one possibility. Another is that the custodianship of these documents could be a little bit more complex than we think right now. In other words, how they got from point A to point B. So it could be that this person printed the documents and somehow took pictures of them at work. Or they printed the documents, somehow took them home, and then took those pictures. I also don't think we can entirely rule out yet the possibility that this person came across these documents a different way somehow and then took them and photographed them, uploaded them online. What law enforcement agencies are also going to have to be careful and methodical about is containing the spread of this, because we understand more documents may be out there. And that means understanding how many more people have seen or saved, again, some of what may be hundreds more documents leaked prior to this March-February batch that haven't spread as widely yet.
And what's so baffling about this, Olivia, is that someone took images of these classified documents and then posted those images on kind of corners of the internet. And the DOD didn't realize they were there until, just a few days ago, recently. So what would the lessons be, based on what we know now about this leak, that perhaps would lead to changes in the way the government handles official docs? Not to mention, you got a lot of presidents and vice presidents, mishandling docs themselves. So what's to be learned here?
That's right. Lots of classified document stories at the moment. Yes, I think you're seeing some of the lessons learned being implemented in real time. So you mentioned, our Pentagon reporter Ellie Watson has confirmed that defense officials have already put into place some measures that are significantly reducing the universe of people who have access to these really highly classified, finished intelligence products. I think you'll also see, as you say, government agencies grappling really with how to maintain some of an awareness of whether some of its most sensitive information is appearing on strange corners of the internet or the dark web, which is very tricky to do given First Amendment protections and all sensitivities surrounding domestic surveillance. That becomes even thornier when, these are the channels where some of these things are being improperly shared are very small and private. Some open source reporting is suggesting that's how this is all started. And then finally, what's interesting about this case is how analog it is, right? Printing and taking these sort of artless photographs of paper copies. In the aftermath of the Manning and the Snowden leaks, there were a slew of measures put in place across the government to prevent mass digital theft. So banning DVDs back then, thumb drives, wireless devices, or anything that transmits data from these buildings. I think you'll see agencies now going very much back to basics and reviewing their rules around printers and even how paper copies are handled now.
All right. Olivia Gazis, thank you.
Thanks, Olivia.
Thank you.